When you hear the word seduction, what's the first thing you think of? Probably romance, right? But what if it's something way more fundamental? What if it's actually a hidden form of power? A game of psychological influence that's quietly shaping politics, society, and even our own lives? Okay, let's dive into this and really explore the art of persuasion as this timeless, powerful strategy. So let me tell you about a young Norma Jean Baker, long before she became the icon Marilyn Monroe. She was ambitious, sure, but she was often just ignored. And then she had this aha moment. She realized that by just changing how she dressed, how she smiled, how she held someone's gaze, she could command attention. Without saying a single word, she found she could make people utterly fascinated by her. She'd stumbled upon this fundamental kind of influence that had nothing to do with arguments and everything to do with a projected presence. And that really brings us to the core question we're tackling here. What if the most powerful form of persuasion operates completely beneath the surface of words? What if it's all about creating a feeling, an aura, an illusion that people are just dying to believe it? Right, so let's agree to look at seduction not as some romantic act, but as a really sophisticated game of psychology. It's all about figuring out what makes people tick and then using that knowledge to kind of guide their emotions and what they perceive. And here's the crucial thing about this psychological game. The goal is to create an experience that's so compelling, it completely disarms the other person. You're creating this pleasurable confusion, drawing someone into a world you've built where all the everyday rules just seem to melt away. It's so much less about force and way more about allure. Now, this kind of influence is often channeled through very specific character types, or archetypes. And these aren't just personalities. They are carefully, deliberately constructed personas designed to fascinate. So let's look at two totally different but equally powerful examples. First up, we have the dandy. I want you to picture someone who basically treats their own life as their ultimate masterpiece. They create this unique style, they stay emotionally distant, and they often play with gender norms. Their power doesn't come from fitting in. No, it comes from standing apart in a way that is just completely captivating. So what's in the dandy's bag of tricks? Well, it's a cult of oneself, but not in a simple narcissistic way. It's about living for pleasure, surrounding yourself with beauty. They use ambiguity. Is he masculine? Is she feminine? To fascinate and, to dominate. Oscar Wilde is the perfect example. He shows up in America in a velvet suit and silk stockings. People were shocked at first, but then he won them over with his hypnotic wit. He was a master of this. And this quote it nails the dandy's method. Their rebellion isn't loud or in your face. It works from within society's rules, subtly twisting them. They create this originality and astonishment while looking like they're playing by the book. And that's what makes their influence so potent. Okay, so let's contrast the dandy with a totally different archetype, the star. If the dandy is this active, artful creation, the star is the complete opposite. They cultivate this mysterious blankness. Think of someone like Marlene Dietrich. A writer once said she projected sex without gender. She was like this beautiful, cool object, a blank screen that people could project all their own fantasies and desires onto. She didn't have to do much. Her power was in that passive, magnetic presence.
Okay, so we've seen who the seducers can be. But now for the big question, what do they actually do? Let's get into the tactics, because I gotta tell you, some of them are incredibly counterintuitive. This is one of the most powerful psychological tools in the entire playbook. It works like this. First, you create some tension, a moment of coldness, maybe a subtle critique, or you're just absent for a bit. This makes the other person insecure. Then, you relieve that tension with a surprising bit of warmth or attention. By repeating this cycle, you create this incredibly powerful pattern of craving and relief, a kind of emotional dependency. And here's the bottom line. Predictability is the absolute enemy of seduction. Constant kindness just gets, boring. It's the calculated surprises, those moments of suspense that keep people on their toes and totally focused on you, just wondering, what are they going to do next? Oh, this is a fantastic example. When Josephine met a young Napoleon Bonaparte, she could just sense his deep insecurities hiding under this calm surface. She knew right away. He would be easy to enslave. But how? Well, once she had his attention, her real power was in postponing his satisfaction. She'd withdraw, frustrate him, make him wait. And this torture, it only made his passion burn hotter, making him completely obsessed with possessing her.
This brings us to what is maybe the most important element of all. The greatest seducers, they don't really operate in the real world. They create a whole alternate reality, this grand illusion that taps into their target's deepest, often unspoken, fantasies.
All right, let's set the scene. It's 1960, and for the very first time, American presidential candidates are debating on live television. This new medium changed everything, and politics was about to become a very visual, very seductive art form.
And the contrast between the two is just everything. On one side, you had Richard Nixon. He presented facts, data, logical arguments, but he looked awful, sweaty, anxious, really rigid. On the other side was John F. Kennedy. He didn't present facts, he presented a myth. He talked about a new frontier, about recapturing America's lost pioneer spirit. He looked calm, sincere, and spoke right to the viewers at home. He wasn't just a politician, he was projecting the image of a new Camelot, an ideal people could fall in love with. He was selling a beautiful illusion.
And this quote just perfectly captures that whole principle. Whether it's in politics or our personal lives, people are often way more moved by a compelling illusion than by cold, hard facts. We crave stories, we crave myths and fantasies that give our lives meaning and a little bit of excitement.
So, after looking at the archetypes, the tactics, the grand illusions, when you boil it all down, what's the single most important lesson to take away from this whole art form?
Here it is. This is the great paradox. Seduction seems so self-serving, right? But its real power comes from an almost selfless focus on the other person. It's about studying them, understanding their unmet desires, their values, their secret insecurities, and then mirroring those things back to them. You have to enter their spirit before you can even think about leading them anywhere. And this just perfectly summarizes the whole strategy. It's like a dance of opposites. You build trust only to introduce a little bit of doubt. You seem to follow all the rules while hinting that you're a bit of a rebel. You reflect their world back at them and then gently guide them into yours. The whole thing is a game of tension and release, of calculated paradox, designed to keep the other person completely and utterly captivated. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought. Once you understand these patterns, the archetypes, that pleasure-pain dynamic, the incredible power of illusion, you start to see them everywhere, in advertising, in political campaigns, all over social media. The question really isn't if this art is being practiced, it's where and by who. Where do you see it?